Hello everyone, it's William, and I'm recording this as I did yesterday in La Maison Heureux, the happy house that belongs to some friends of mine in Issy-les-Moulineaux, just outside of Paris. And tomorrow I will be leaving for Zurich. But in the meantime, it's a happy house, but it's not a very happy day because my dear friend, I can hardly believe he's gone, one of my best friends in the world and the husband of my godmother, died yesterday morning. And with him went one of the last direct links to pre-revolutionary Imperial Russia, because he knew Grand Duchess Ksenia, he knew Grand Duchess Olga, Felix Yusupov. He was 93 years old. He would have been 94 in June, but a man just full of the most amazing memories and stories. But that aside, of course, I will miss him very dearly. So this video is for you, Philip. And yeah, what can a person say? Hopefully I'll be able to make it to the funeral in London when that occurs. So this is part 5 and the penultimate part of the long diary entry of 30th April 1921. And thank you, those of you who viewed yesterday's, thank you for that. It wasn't, it wasn't terribly informative about Dmitri. It was interesting, focusing on the ongoing miners' strike in England. Today we have one that's a little more personally connected to Dmitri, although he was taking the events in England quite personally. So this one is about Pyotr Wrangel, whom we've talked about many times before, since Dmitri has been following what's going on with him. And yeah, tomorrow will be, or the next video, I should say, will be a very important one. An important step in Dmitri's life, confronting what he had done in relation to Rasputin and his part in that. All right, so a recap of part 4 of the long diary entry. Well, I don't really need a recap because I just have been talking about the miners' strike and what was covered. And our cast for today, we have, of course, Pyotr Wrangel and Olesya Wrangel, his wife, although neither of them will be present in the flesh in Dmitri's life in this particular section of the diary. Okay, here we go. Regarding Wrangel and his sad saga in Constantinople, there's very little new information. Newspapers were reporting that Peter had supposedly been asked by the French mission to leave Turkey within 3 days, beyond which the French even objected to him saying goodbye to his troops. But it's terribly difficult to judge whether that's true or not, because Novaya Vremya, which is now published in Serbia, is refuting those rumors. Olesya Wrangel is living here temporarily. I don't know her personally, but Maria has talked to her. Of course, she's frightfully embittered against everything and everyone, and mainly blames the French for the failure. Nothing at all is heard about the Russian council or assembly that was established in Constantinople for the purpose of overseeing and managing the lives of all Russians abroad. That, at any rate, is as it should be, because it was all too naive. But apparently Peter Wrangel still sees himself in the role of leader and cannot cease playing the statesman, but his position at the moment is purely objective. And let me say, I don't know what to do with that last word, because obviously in English, that does not fit the context of what Dmitri is saying when he says that Wrangel's position at the moment is purely objective. So he's using the same word in Russian, the same word, objective, and it can have other meanings, but none of them really fits. So what can you say? I would say maybe theoretical. His position at the moment is purely, yeah, Dmitri could mean that it's sort of a self-proclaimed position that doesn't have any meaning, or he could mean that it's an unstable position if he's talking about not Peter's idea of being leader, but just his overall position. So I don't know. Make what you will of that. It's very interesting to me that all along Dmitri has been calling Wrangel by his Christian name, not only by his Christian name, but by his nickname. Instead of being called Petya or Pyotr, he was actually called Peter, and Dmitri spells it that way. And it's not, it's not using his Christian name and patronymic. It's not calling him general. It's just calling him by his nickname, Peter. And so clearly they knew each other, because Dmitri would not have taken that liberty. That I can tell you, even in his diary, he would not have taken that liberty if the two of them hadn't been closely acquainted. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that they must at some point have shared a drink perdu, as the Germans say, nati in Russian, where you agree to use to be on a first name basis with a person and to use the informal form of the word you. So in English, antiquated, thou. So that's very interesting, even though Dmitri doesn't know his wife, apparently has never even met her. And I'll have to, General Wrangel has a living grandson in the U.S., whom I've had some contact with, and so I'll have to run that by him. I'd be really interested to know about that. There's also, within the diaries, Dmitri slipped a letter from Wrangel. I don't have it with me. I've never been able to decipher the handwriting, but I need to go back to that. There also was another Wrangel who would be very important in Dmitri's life, of Vladimir Wrangel in the 30s. He would be an assistant to Dmitri, helping to look after his affairs of various kinds, and he would also be a tutor to Paul Ilyinsky, Dmitri's son, and Paul looked back on him fondly. And in fact, this particular Wrangel, rather ironically, since Dmitri doesn't call Peter the general, who was in fact a famous general, but there was a person in the diaries in the 1930s who Dmitri always referred to, and in his letters, as the general, in quotes. And I had no idea who it was. And so that was one of the things I asked Paul Ilyinsky, who on earth was the general? And Paul didn't even have to, scrape up a memory of that. He knew exactly who it was. Oh, that was Vladimir Wrangel. So I do not know his relationship to Peter Wrangel, but presumably it will be possible to find out. Okay, so this was, I've held up many times this book that's like my Bible of the Russian diaspora at this time period, the White Russians by Alexander Zhivakov, and I stupidly didn't bring it with me to Europe. I wish I had it now, because one of the most fascinating parts of that book is that Zhivakov goes into detail about what was going on with Wrangel and his remaining troops who'd been evacuated from the Crimea at the very, very end of the Civil War, probably the last White Russian troops to be evacuated, and that Wrangel wanted to keep them together as a body of troops and and they had also had their own government in Crimea, and so he wanted there to be a government in exile, like there had been with General de Gaulle and the French during the Second World War. But that was completely untenable. It was too naive, as Dmitri says, and that just wasn't going to happen. And the French had been supporting Wrangel and this group of people for a long time, but now, you know, they saw that it was pointless, I guess, and that it was untenable, and that the government of Turkey at that time wanted them out. And I know that, in fact, so Dmitri says that there are rumors that he's gone on to Serbia. And it's true. In 1922, he ended up in Serbia. So Novaya Vremya was an emigre journal that is now being published in Serbia. I'm not sure where it was being published prior to that. But their reporting, well, wait, what did he say? That the French gave him 3 days to leave Turkey and objected to him even saying goodbye to his troops. But Novaya Vremya is refuting that. It's published in Serbia, and they probably did have the inside scoop because, yeah, Wrangel was already, you know, basically making his plans to go to Serbia. He would go there, yeah, in 1922, and then he and his family, when all idea had been given up of keeping this body of people together and Wrangel being a leader of the diaspora, he and his family settled in Belgium in 1927. Okay, so yeah, he had established this Russian council. Dmitri puts that in quotes, or Russian assembly in Constantinople, and he had this grand idea, one of several people who had this grand idea that they were going to be the leader of the emigre diaspora. And Dmitri is kind of rolling his eyes at that, although he himself, as you know, had some idea of being that person, at least in a symbolic level, as the Tsar to be. But now he thinks that Wrangel is being completely unrealistic about that. And of course, he's right, although he's not really one to talk, one could say, in that respect. But clearly this annoys him. Whatever his relationship with Wrangel might have been prior to all of this, this aspect, this development with Peter wanting to take that role on, annoys Dmitri, probably, you know, touches a sore spot. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. Yeah, definitely come back in the next video. Hopefully I'll be in transit tomorrow, and I'll be spending the night in a lively household in Zurich before going on to Davos. So I don't know, you know, I probably won't do a video tomorrow, but soon. So bear with me, and it's definitely one you'll want to come back for. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, dealing with Rasputin and Dmitri's guilt over his involvement in that event. So I will see you next time. Bye.